Describing what an Asian American is complicated.
It's currently the month of May, right, which is Asian American Heritage Month. So it's a month where we as a community can come together and really embrace who we are as a community, show our pride.
But we're in a little bit of a national soul-searching trend right now, so I'll jump on the bandwagon and ask, what does it mean to be Asian American?
My name is Jennifer Nguyen. I would describe my identity as being Vietnamese-American. My parents are from Vietnam, but I was born and raised here in the US, and so that makes me Asian American.
Hi, my name is Cameron Brazil, and I'm half Korean.
My name is Mara. I'm Chinese American, and I was adopted from China when I was less than a year old.
My name is Michelle. I am Korean American.
My name is Lina Pham. So, how would I describe my identity? I am a first-generation Vietnamese American.
I'm an ABC, American-born Chinese. I was born and raised in New York. My family is Cantonese. They're from Guangdong.
I'm Maggie. I think that I would describe my identity as ever-changing. I had a lot of people telling me what my identity should be and how I should act, but I think for me, I am a blend of many cultures and many things, and I can't be so easily defined.
Hey there everyone, my name is Alicia Barlow. For me, I would say that I am Chinese American, but I think that identity is something that's very complex for each different person, and I think that as we go along in our lives, we are constantly changing.
Growing up, I never really analyzed this topic of identity, and I feel like I always struggled to understand who I am as an individual, and I still struggle with it today, identifying myself as either Asian or American. This question of who am I? What is my identity?
It's taken a lifetime and a half to get to the point where I really appreciate what I look like and who I am, where I came from, and all of the things that make me who I am.
What does being a member of the Asian American community mean to you?
Being a member of the Asian American community, or the Asian community in general, was actually something that I had avoided for a long portion of my life because I had grown up in a very whitewashed city and area, and so I thought that it would be better to blend in than to stand out. When I thought of the Asian community, I thought of this version of myself that I couldn't identify with, that people saw me as, and I wanted to kind of prove them that I was different, that I was more than that, but it honestly just ended up being a lot of resentment for my own race and culture because I was trying to mute the fact that I was another race amongst all of my white friends and peers. And it left me feeling extremely hollow and confused most of my life.
If someone had asked me what being a member of the Asian American community means to me a couple years ago, I wouldn't have known what to say because I didn't feel like I could be a part of that community. I didn't feel like I was a part of that community. I always felt like I was never a part of any community. That growing up, navigating my identity, I was too Asian to be American and too American to be Asian. And this was really, really hard. It kind of changed during high school, but mainly when I came to college. And I realized that I don't have to be just Asian and I don't have to be just American. I could be both. I could be Asian American, and that could be a perfectly fine community to identify with. And once I got to that point, I was so much more happier with myself and my life and just everything around me, that I didn't have to be one thing or another. I didn't have to be what people told me I had to be. I could be who I wanted to be, and that was really beautiful. Being Asian American to me, it means that I don't have to settle, or I don't have to struggle. I don't have to wrestle with the fact that I feel like I may not be good enough for one community or for another.
Being Asian American to me means the whole world, but I didn't always look at it like that. You know, growing up as an Asian kid, it was really hard for me. Even though I moved around the US a lot as a child, I never found any kids who looked like me or who could connect with me. You know, I was always singled out. I was always targeted, always treated like the black sheep ever since a young age. And it made me despise who I was. You know, it made me hate the fact that I looked more like my mother than I did my father. It made me hate the fact that no one could understand my mom, or no one wanted to try her cooking. It just made me hate being Asian in general, even though I still face those same remarks and those same ignorant people to this day. I learned more about our culture and about our people. And as I did so, it just filled me with this tremendous sense of pride and gratitude. As I learned more about the sacrifice, not only that my mother made, but other parents and other families from Asia, it just blows me away. They sacrificed everything they knew to come here to a foreign place, to learn a foreign language, to learn new customs and new traditions, while constantly facing hate and ridicule. It blows me away, and I just am overwhelmed with a sense of gratitude.
I am really proud of my culture and being a part of my community because it gave me a really strong sense of identity. Being a part of the community made me who I am, right? Just because I am Asian American, Korean American, I am automatically accepted, given a chance to be part of a community of other Asian Americans and Korean Americans that make it so you're a part of a community, a larger group, a family.
Becoming part of the Asian American community is actually really wonderful, and it's hard to express or explain to people who are not amongst us, but there are things that we have all battled and faced together living as an Asian in the United States. And there are things that we can relate to on different levels that other people just don't have the same experience as. I think that it's just nice to have a place of solace, a place to go to, and a community of people who are willing to engage on challenging topics that people don't often want to talk about.
Being Asian American, it means for me that I'm genetically Asian, but culturally I'm more, I guess you could say, American. So for me, I grew up in a small town that does not have a big population of Asian people. So I kind of never really connected with the Asian side of myself, but being a part of the Asian American community as a whole, I think that, I don't know, it's weird because I kind of don't consider myself a part of the Asian American community, even though I am Asian American, but it's just because culturally I've grown up in a very predominantly white community, and so I feel very white almost, even though I know that obviously I don't look white and I'm not white. Yeah, I never really had, I guess, the outlets to really kind of explore the more Asian side of myself. That part of my identity is still forming, and I think that that's okay.
And to me, being Asian American means that I get to experience and enjoy both of cultures of being Asian and then being American. So at home, I get to speak Vietnamese with my parents. I get to experience our cultures, traditions, and our holidays, and eat a lot of good Vietnamese food. But you know, outside of my home, I am an American and experience individuality or like a freedom of expression, regardless of age. That's been kind of a struggle at times, you know, bringing that home and then bringing my Asian culture outside. But growing up, after a while, I learned to appreciate it a lot.
It means that I can enjoy the best of both worlds, embracing my Asian roots while appreciating my American surrounding.
What do you love most about your culture?
One thing that I love most about my culture is that it's two cultures. I have my Chinese culture and I have my American culture, and I love that I can experience both and learn about both. I also love that I can share both of those cultures with other people. When I went to China, I could talk to Chinese students about what it's like to be American, and in the US, I can talk to people about what it's like to be Chinese or explain parts of Chinese culture. And so I think it's beautiful to be part of both worlds.
So what I love about American culture is that you have a sense of freedom to express like who you are as an individual. What I love about Chinese culture is like the traditional aspect of it, like celebrating Chinese New Year, and also I really love Chinese food.
I'd have to say it's food. And the reason why I say it's food is because there's such a wide variety of Vietnamese foods that just reminds me of my childhood growing up, because my mom cooks so many different things.
I really love the depth of our culture, from the food to the holiday and traditions. For example, I get to celebrate my birthday twice each year, once according to the lunar calendar and once according to the Gregorian calendar. And of course, on both days, I get birthday cakes and red envelopes. I also really enjoy growing up being bilingual. I can switch between languages with my friends, and we call that Chinglish, a mix of Chinese and English.
Something that I love the most about my culture is how family oriented it is. When I was younger, obviously, I felt it was kind of nitpicky and weird to like always think of my family before myself, but growing up now, I've also appreciated it too, because I see how close-knit I am with my family, and how much like everyone cares for each other, and that also goes to my extended family, so I'm really close with my cousins as well.
I think some of my favorite things about Chinese culture is the way that everyone is exceedingly warm and welcoming. I also really love the art and the culture that just goes back dynasties and dynasties. I think that there's this misconception by the United States that because China still has rural areas and rice farms and all of these places that aren't urbanized, that they're behind the times. But I don't think that's true at all. I think that they're very advanced, and they're also very respectful of tradition, and they want to keep it alive, and they want to keep a part of their country whole, and they don't want to give it up.
What about your identity, culture, life, or heritage makes you proud? Well, the Asian American culture was built around immigrants who came from different countries to the United States, and they started with nothing. Most of them came over by boat, and you know, they only had the clothes on their back. I'm Vietnamese-American, so my parents came from Vietnam after the fall of Saigon in 1975, and you know, that was basically their starting point. They had nothing, and they have built their life over the span of 30 years to have a family, have a home, and basically live a normal lifestyle, or what we would consider a normal lifestyle. And that didn't just come from thin air. They had to put in a lot of perseverance and you know, hard work to get where they are, and to also endure a lot of hardships. tons of hardship, and oftentimes we wake up to what they wish they could have had, 30 years ago. And so for that, not only am I proud of my parents, but I'm proud for every single immigrant parent that has come over and start from the bottom up.
Something about my identity that makes me proud is that I am the daughter of 2 Vietnamese immigrants who left their families, their country, and everything familiar in an effort to come to the United States to give me a better life.
Speaking Vietnamese at home was something that really made me proud because, not everyone gets the opportunity to grow up bilingual, even though it is pretty common now, which is awesome.
The ability to interact with different people and being bilingual. So because I am Asian American, I understand the point of view of both Asian and American, and that allows me to stay open-minded about many things.
I am proud to be Korean because I know I have a really strong, deep history that makes it so I come from a really strong, resilient people. I'm proud to be American because I think it means that I got to where I am because of my own strength, right? Because that's what being an American is. It's being the best that you can be with whatever you were given to overcome any and all obstacles that came your way to get to where you are. So it shows the strength in self. And I think being Asian American shows a really unique combination of both. I was raised by immigrant parents who came to this country after they were, already adults, where they had to literally start from scratch. Because of their strong roots, I think their strong Korean roots, they were able to persist past that and, get through a language barrier and a financial barrier, a cultural barrier, and, try to live that American dream.
What do you wish people would understand about your culture?
One of the hardest things about being generally Asian American is the kind of labels that you are given. You don't label yourself as this, but other people give you labels like you're Asian or you're American, but you're never both, right?
I wish that people would be more open in terms of stereotyping Asian Americans, because I've always gotten the question of where are you from?
If you're in America, like a predominantly white neighborhood, if someone comes up to you and asks you, about where you're from, they never mean what state are you from?
And I feel like I just have to tell them straight up, and when I really don't feel comfortable saying it, because it's not really their business to judge me based off of how I look.
If I answer I'm from California, it's not the answer they're looking for, right? They're looking for what kind of Asian are you? Because you're not American, you're Asian.
I just feel like people should have more of an open mind towards Asian Americans, because there's 2 different sides of us that we have to deal with every single day, and I feel like people only are biased towards the Chinese side or Asian side of Asian Americans.
If I were to go back to Asia, if I were to go back to Korea, people wouldn't see me as Korean or Asian, they would see me as American, right? These are the labels that other people give us, kind of is only half of our identities, right? And I think the only people who can really 100% understand the experiences that we go through are Asian Americans.
Something that I wish people would understand about my culture is that just because something's foreign or exotic to you is probably a normal thing for someone in that culture. So I just wish that people would accept differences more.
Asian people aren't necessarily, they're not backwards or anything, and I see a lot of racism and stereotypes, especially nowadays with COVID-19, and people are they eat bat soup and they eat dogs and or they're so dirty, and that's just awful. And I think that there are a lot of things that every culture around the world has ways in which they are different from the US culture, and just because it's different doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad or that it's backwards or that it's dirty. And that's just kind of one of the things that's been upsetting me, is that I think a lot of people have clung to these stereotypes as a way to justify their fear, and I don't think that's okay.
Rather than being afraid of something or fearful of something because it's unusual or unfamiliar, you're just looking at it with an open mind, and you know, you don't really have to try it, but you just need to respect it because it's of someone's culture. What is one of the hardest parts about being Asian in the US or as an Asian American?
The hardest part about being Chinese American in the US is not feeling valid. Not feeling like your experiences are valid or valid enough. It's hard when there's racism, but you don't feel like it's racist enough to warrant a defense. You don't feel like you are marginalized enough or discriminated against enough to defend yourself. It's hard to feel like your struggles are valid because you're a model minority. It's hard to feel like your feelings are valid sometimes. It's hard to feel like society cares about you sometimes. Because sometimes it feels like racism, at least when it's against an Asian American, a Chinese American. Sometimes it feels like it isn't real. Like it isn't real racism. COVID-19 isn't the first time that racism against Asian Americans has been a thing. It doesn't start and it doesn't stop with coronavirus. I can remember the first time that someone called me chink, and I knew what a chink was, but I didn't know why he was calling me that, and I didn't know if I could say anything back, because I thought it's not as bad for me as it is for other people. People don't recognize the racism. People don't validate the racism. But it's still racism.
Being Asian American, being Chinese, being female, there is actually a lot of difficulties when it comes to fetishes, because it's very difficult to know if someone is interested in you for your general personality, your genuine thoughts and feelings, and who you are as a person, versus features that are very distinctive of your race. And it really tends to minimize me as a person. I think that people should really stop thinking that it's a compliment to tell someone that they have yellow fever. I think that's actually one of the most rude things you could say to an Asian individual, to let them know that the only reason that they're interested in your existence is because of the way you look. Being an Asian American is also very difficult because Asia is an entire continent, but people typically think of East Asia when they think of Asian, and so a lot of people are misrepresented and not acknowledged in the same way. And because we have similar physical appearances, we often get lumped in a lot. So I've been mistaken for Korean, I've been mistaken for Vietnamese, Japanese, Filipino, and even Pacific Islander on occasion. So there's a lot that is generalized about being an Asian American. We get to be put into boxes and labeled, and then there are always expectations that follow. Microaggressions are really difficult as well, because we have this opposite stereotype where we're often supposed to be perceived as very smart, very intellectual. And when we don't meet that stereotype, we fall below. And it's kind of an added stereotype threat, a lot of pressure. and either way you lose.
I feel like one of the biggest problem is that a lot of people will automatically think that we are really good in math, which I'm not, or one of the smartest kid in class, or just knowing your parents' mother tongue. And although I was raised in like a traditional family, and so I can speak Cantonese quite well, not all my friends who are also like Asian American can speak Cantonese really well, or Chinese in general. My Chinese is still alright, but that's not true for everyone.
Right now, especially with COVID-19 going on, there's been a lot of anti-Asian sentiment, and that's really tough to see because it makes me not want to like go out into public and be accosted by someone or be beat up or be verbally abused.
I myself am a Chinese individual. I don't feel comfortable going out very often because I am afraid of what people will say to me and afraid of what our nation's leader has allowed them to think they can say to me. People are afraid of Asian culture and they don't really like to talk about it. It's unfamiliar, it's unexplainable, there's so much that they don't relate to, and there is such a prevalent xenophobia that is showing right now, especially.
The microaggressions and like the subtle racism that sometimes hurts a lot more. But with the rise of like outright and direct racism and like violence against Asians and Asian Americans, it's definitely really sad to see.
No one really wants to talk about how many Asians are being beaten or mugged or treated so poorly. And it's shameful, it's hurtful, and it really doesn't make me very hopeful.
For me, I would say that's constantly feeling like I'm an outsider, that perpetual foreigner syndrome that Asian Americans tend to experience, where you're not always seen as accepted fully as an American person because you have this like Asian culture behind you, but at the same time you're too American by Asian standards, so you're not like fully accepted in either or. And that's always kind of made me feel like weird because I always feel like, well, I'm a little different from like my American friends, but I understand them, but then they also like find me a little different because I have some Asian cultures and tendencies, I guess, that they don't really understand. But then on my family side with like my Asian cousins, aunts and uncles, they don't really understand why I'm so American or like why I can't understand this and that about their culture fully.
I love being Chinese. I love being Asian. I think that there is a lot of beauty in the culture and the country that helped make me who I am. Born in China and raised in the United States and having a wild and vast perspective on the world, I think that it's extremely important to be dynamic and diverse and challenge the way that people accept things. And if you're not defending yourself, then you are in a place of privilege, and you should really kind of examine why that is, because a lot of it could have to do with the color of your skin.
This month is so important, and why I wanted to talk about why I'm proud to be Asian American, because I think we should all embrace the community that we're part of and kind of get the word out about why it is important to be proud of who you are. I'm really thankful for this month of May that we can talk about what makes us us.
Being Asian American makes me feel like I have a place that I belong and a place where I don't have to compromise and a place where I am good enough.
Being Asian American to me means I'm not living just for my own sake. I'm representing not only myself but my people. The racism, that is forced upon us, especially in today's age. We have to rise above it and not to conform to it and not to just fall into that hateful cycle. So I implore all of you, fellow Asian Americans, to strive every day and to be like your parents or the people who came before you, to be like the trailblazers who laid out this path for us, and so that we can enjoy a better future. We must strive to be like them, to show the world that we are more than just stereotypes, that we are more than just kung fu fighters or mathematicians or whatever you want to call us. We're unique people with a deep history